I believe
Oh,
that means we're live. There we are again. Well, this is really cool. An awesome way to spend your Sunday, no matter where in the world you're watching us right now. I'm Kevin Kenny, and you know who this guy is, Deryck Whibley, the star of the hour and really the man of the week in terms of books. I think you've gotten a whole generation of punk rock fans into books, Deryck, with this Walking
that's
Disaster.
well, I'm doing my best, I guess.
Yeah, right. You and I were lucky enough to chat, or I should say, I was lucky enough to chat with you on the day of the launch last week. And
Yeah.
now we're going to be doing this for about the next 30 minutes. So if you are just tuning in, this is a live signing. This is pretty cool. This is going out across social media. You could be watching this in any variety of places right now. And really, the top line item I wanted to tell you about the viewer is you can go to walkingdisasterbook.com. So that's walkingdisasterbook.com. Pretty, and you can get 15 editions of the book today only, though, and you just got to enter walk 15. So that's WALK 15 15, and you got 15% off autographed editions of Walking Disaster. And this book has been such a journey, Deryck. And then you and I talked about it in New York last week, but
Yep.
take us through just like from concept to sort of putting pen to pad in earnest with Walking Disaster.
Yeah, well, the idea of doing a book has been around for a few years, maybe like 7 years or so. I've been approached before. I've been in conversations with different publishers and writers, and all that kind of stuff. And I always kind of felt like it wasn't the right time. And I also thought my story was just kind of boring. Like it just felt like I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't know. I'm just a guy who wrote some songs, had some success, and now here I am. Sure, there's been some ups and downs that I know about, but I mean, are they really that worthy of writing a book about? That's how I always looked at it. And then when we decided to make Heaven and Hell our last record and do a final tour, it all kind of made sense to do a book at the same time and just sort of wrap this whole chapter up of my life and start fresh moving forward, next year. Once the tour is over, it's like everything of Sum 41 in my life up until now is just all out there. It's all behind me, and I can just start fresh now.
Now, this is a kind of a question I couldn't ask you on Tuesday because the book had just been out in a matter of hours last time you and I spoke. Um, how how you're feeling now that the book is out? You get to see people's reactions. Fans read the book. How this feels compared to maybe your expectations heading in?
In all honesty, it's been a lot of mixed emotions, a lot of up and down feeling. Um, Mostly because like some of the content of the book and some of the stories that have come out, and the biggest one about my ex-manager, and all the sort of drama that goes along with that's been really difficult in some ways, but also a relief in a lot of ways to get some of this stuff off my chest, things that I've been bearing for so long, things I didn't even know, things I'd never really quite processed. So in a way, in this moment right now, like I'm at the beginning stages or in the middle stages of processing some of the things I've been through because I never dealt with it. So the first step for me was writing about some of these deep, dark secrets. This next step was putting it out to the world, and that was just a few days ago. So now this is me in real time dealing with whatever happens, right? And I'm still processing a lot of this stuff. So it's a lot of mixed emotions, a lot of up and down, a lot of anxiety, but then a lot of like, oh, thank God, like I have this weight lifted off of me at the same time.
Yeah, not to use a literature pun, right, Deryck? But it's almost like beginning a new chapter, right?
Yeah,
Turning the
yeah,
page, if you will.
yeah, exactly.
Totally.
So yeah, sorry, go on.
No, totally. I was just going to say we have so many fans watching from around the world. I said at the top, this is a little hangout we're going to do here with Deryck live with you. You can send in fan questions. If you are just joining us, there's actually an amazing deal going on right now at walkingdisasterbook.com. You just head there. You can get 15% off today only on autographed editions of the book. These are books that Deryck himself personally signed for you. And you just got to enter the code WALK15, WALK15. And so that's going on right now. And we have people weighing in from all around the world. I love this Facebook comment, Deryck, from Becca Bailey, who says, I haven't read a book in years, but I'm glued to this one. I mean, I think that's what
Oh, wow.
everyone's feeling this week, which is how it's just a real page turner. And let's get to some of these fan questions. We got Adam from New York City watching right now. And Adam wants to know, what's the funniest memory you have with another band while on tour over the years?
There's so many, but one that just came to mind instantly was on the half-hour power tour when we were still totally unknown, and we were touring with an then totally unknown band called Bowling for Soup. And it was a tour of like really small clubs playing to like 20 people, and we were all in vans at the time, and it was in the winter, and we were driving through Colorado, and we were in like mountains, and it was a ton of snow, and our van broke down. We were ahead of everybody else. Like, our van drove before Bowling for Soup, a couple hours before. Our van broke down in the middle of the night, and it was just a huge snowstorm, and we were able to contact Bowling for Soup, who was a couple hours behind us, and we ended up having to jump in their van and ride both bands in one van together for like 3 or 4 days. And we were all just like crammed into this van, and we didn't really know each other, but we really got to know each other after that. Like, we were literally on tour together. And we had great times. I mean, since we didn't know each other that well, I mean, we'd played a couple shows already, and we just sort of see each other, and we were friendly, but we didn't know each other. And the first thing we did, they picked us up in the middle of the night, and we just thought, well, should we hit like a beer store, like grab a bunch of beer? So we just grabbed cases of beer, and we just were shotgunning beers all night, and we just became really great friends. It was just to break the ice, because we were all kind of like, there's like, I don't know how many people, 9 of us in this van now, and we're just like, well, let's get to know each other by just getting hammered and laughing and listening to music, and we became really close after that.
Yeah, incredible story. I mean, there are so many incredible stories in the book. We have another question coming in here, Adrian from Florida, and this is actually kind of like piggybacking off something you and I talked about really one of the big takeaways that I had while reading Walking Disaster was just how consistently positive you are and have been throughout your whole life, despite whatever life throws at you, Deryck. And Adrian from Florida wants to know, who has most inspired you to remain hopeful in life?
Probably my mom. I can trace back to very early on. Anytime things, say I got angry about something as a kid, 7 years old, or whatever I was doing, I was acting out as a young kid, or I didn't like something, or I was bored, or whatever it was, she would always say to me, life is only as fun as you make it. And I didn't really know what that meant at first. And then I finally asked her, and she kind of explained to me, you can look at life different ways. You can look at this as being boring, or you could create something and fun out of this situation. And she used the word fun back then because I was only about 7 or 8 years old. Whereas like I've morphed that into, as I've gotten older, of there's always negative and there's always positive, and life is what you focus on. I could name you 10 things that are difficult in my life today, but I could also tell you about 10 amazing things in my life today. And I just focus on those, and these things just disappear, because your life is what you focus on. If you're like this and this and this and this and this, I've got this going on and this bad thing, and don't you see how bad this is? It's like, yeah, I do. But don't you see how great this and this is? Like, that's what you should focus on. And that's what I've always done.
I don't know how, if you're already thinking about writing future books in your life, but is there anything in the back of your mind with this sort of, I mean, you're so great at, I mean, that's motivating what you just said and inspiring. And would you ever write like a self-help book? Or I know you probably think that's cheesy.
No, I don't think it's cheesy at all. I think it's, I would be so, I laugh because I don't think that I would know how to speak to other people about stuff that well. Like, I feel like that's such an important role that I would be afraid to guide people in any kind of way, because like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just do what I do. Right. So no, I don't think about that. I like all that kind of stuff, though. I love people who do that stuff. I love those podcasts, like when they're good. There's a lot of like that space, right now has a lot of people just trying to like tell you this and tell you that, and you should do this and you should listen to me and blah, blah, blah. But the people that are good at that stuff, I find that stuff really helpful. So I would say, I don't think I would do it, because I think there are some great people out there doing that stuff, and it's so readily available online these days, or books as well.
No, totally. If you're just joining us, we are live with Deryck Whibley, of course, across social media, across the world right now, celebrating the release of Walking Disaster. And if you are watching this right now, and whether you have a copy of the book or not, you can get an autographed edition of the book that Deryck personally signed for you for 15% off right now over at walkingdisasterbook.com. And all you got to do is, when you head there, enter the code WALK15. So that's WALK15, and you'll get your 15% off the autographed copy of the book. And we're taking fan questions, so please don't be shy wherever you're watching us from.
I was just gonna say, don't want to interrupt you, but I was gonna, as when you just said the title of the book, Walking Disaster, I'm like, that would be a hilarious second book. My first book is called Walking Disaster, about my life.
Yeah.
And my next one is like, hey, follow what I do. Like,
yeah, exactly.
like
Andrea probably from Italy. What is your best memory about Blink 182? Do you have a memory with Blink 182?
Yeah, we got lots of memories with those guys. I mean, I briefly talk about some of that in the book. I mean, a lot of those bands we met in the early days when we were just coming up, and they were one of the early bands in our early career that actually took notice of us and actually publicly spoke about us and brought us on tour in the early days. And I remember Travis Barker coming to one of our early shows when we were playing a club, and he was super famous. You know, this was like on Enema of the State. That record was massive. You know, it was post all the small things, but like before the record that came after that. And I think it was like in the middle, like while they're making that record, maybe, or something like that. Anyways, he came to one of our shows in like 2000, I want to say it was, on Half Hour Power. We were playing the Glass House in Pomona, and you know, we were just all blown away. It was like, and he was very nice. He was very cool, and those guys were always really nice to us.
And I mean, I remember from just reading the book, you talk about that, and then actually Blink 182 comes up when you detail in the book how you guys came up with your own name because you were aware of Blink 182 and they were just sort of catching.
We were aware after the name.
Right.
We already come up with our name. It was about a year after we had Sum 41 is when we became aware of Blink 182.
Yeah, it's crazy to think back. Cassandra from North Carolina just commented and wants to know, what is the most eye-opening thing you learned about yourself while writing the memoir, and how have people in your life reacted to it?
You know, people are reacting to it now because people are still just getting through the whole thing, right? It's only been out for a few days. So some people have already read it, the whole thing. Some people are halfway through. Some people are just starting. So I'm getting a lot of messages, and, you know, a lot of people are impressed, I guess, with the amount of honesty. I think usually you come to expect a mild level of honesty in an autobiography from most people. You know, like it's usually, this is how cool I think I am, and this is my best moments. And yeah, there's a couple like down moments, but we're going to spend more time on all the great shit that I've done. Whereas I went into this with one rule, and all that was, I told myself was, just don't try to make yourself sound cool. Just be honest and tell the real fucking story. And once I did that, it just all came out almost like it was like a diary. So I think people are more surprised about how personal it is.
Yeah, and we've talked about this too, Deryck. The audiobook experience it's usually you either get one or the other when a book comes out. I've been telling everybody I can tell, and I'll tell the viewers right now, I would get both, just because it's almost like a companion. It's almost like its own book because it's such a different experience than reading, you know, the text, which is great, of course, as well. You have songs in the audiobook, of course, but then you were talking about just like sort of being vulnerable and just telling it like it is. How was it like recording the audiobook? Because it almost sounds like, it feels like you're in conversation with Deryck Whibley as you read it.
Well, there's two things to that. One, I'm going to your point about getting both, an interesting, I mean, this is a good hack if you're trying to learn something, but this is also entertaining too. If you do get both and listen and read at the same time. Now, it's a great hack if you're trying to learn something because it hits two different parts of the brain and you can remember things a little bit easier. But if you're for entertainment, it's actually kind of enjoyable to hear and read. I've done it before, and it's like surprisingly kind of cool. Now, that's that part. Now, doing the actual audio was really difficult. One, it was difficult to just read along and not mess up because even though I wrote the whole book myself, your internal dialogue that you put on a page is a little different sometimes than the way you would just speak. So sometimes I would just go over a line and, you know, it would just take me a second to be like, oh yeah, I wrote that, but I would never speak that in a conversation necessarily, but that's the way my brain works if I'm writing. So some of it was difficult that way, but then the difficult part was being so vulnerable and personal and being in a studio with people that I didn't know. There's, an engineer and people recording me, and I'm getting to some of these really hard parts, especially stuff with my ex-manager and some of the stuff that we talk about, and the really hard stuff. And that was difficult to talk about in front of people who didn't know that this was coming in the book, right? And they're just people who are there to record you. And you just kind of met them that day or the day before. So it was difficult. But also, even if it was people I knew, like I said, the first step was writing it. The next step was like saying some of this stuff out loud, and hearing my own voice say some of this stuff. That was difficult.
And not to keep pushing this self-help agenda of mine on you, Deryck, but
Yeah.
and of course, I want to preface this question with everybody's experience is different. We all cope differently. But
Yeah.
is there any piece of advice that maybe you could offer from someone who, I mean, so publicly in the form of a book that now, tons of people around the world are reading, you confronting a lot of this trauma you went through throughout your life and talking about it? Is there any little piece of maybe advice that you feel might be universal that somebody who is struggling to deal with facing some trauma they've dealt with?
Yes, to a certain degree. I mean, everybody has their own journey, and everybody has to get there at their own time. And you never want to look at how other people, you never want to compare yourself to another person and say, well, this person did that, or they took that long, or they did it so quickly. Like you have to say what you want to say or deal with it your own way. And that's really difficult. It is your own journey. That's the hardest part about it. What I found for myself and what I came to when I was writing this book, and I got to the moments in the book that were traumatic and hard to even think about. And now I'm faced with the decision to write it in a book that's going to go out to the whole world. I pulled back and I was like, I can't go there. I've been burying this for over 20 years and I'm just going to keep it buried. And then that's when I had a moment where I said to myself, the hardest thing to say is usually the most important thing you can say. And that's a good rule I've had for myself for writing music and just also in life. I find that the hardest thing to do is the most important thing you could do. So it may be hard, but and everybody has a different way of finding their way to get there. For me, it was the book. Sometimes for somebody else, they're not writing a book and they need to come out and say it somehow, or they need to tell somebody or whatever it is. I'll just be honest, like for me to actually write some of the traumatic stuff in the book, before I could even write it down, I went to a therapist just for one session to just say it out loud and say, I'm thinking about writing this stuff in the book and I need to just say it out loud because I've buried it for 20 years and I barely told anybody. So I need to just say this and just see how it feels coming out of my mouth. And then once I said it to somebody who I felt comfortable with, it made it easier to start writing about it.
Wow. I didn't realize you did that
Mm-hmm.
before the writing.
But again, like everybody has their own journey, right? So I had to figure out, how can I get to this place? And I thought, okay, maybe I can say it to somebody. Who can I say it to? And you just go down this line. I mean, I always find it important to try to look at yourself objectively, but also like figuratively look at yourself naked in the mirror. I don't ever do that, like literally, but figuratively look at yourself completely naked and say, what do I need to, you see everything, right? Or another trick too is give somebody else advice that is your issue. Like pretend there's another person that has the problem that you're dealing with, and give that person advice. And then you'll probably give that person great advice, and then just take that advice because we tend to give other people better advice than we follow ourselves, right? Or we give ourselves. So if you make an imaginary person, give them your problems and say, here's what you should do. That's usually you'll find your answer.
Yeah, it's like the funny catch-22 of life, right? Where we can give the best advice. And I feel like a lot of the time too, we'll see things in other people that we possess, we don't like about ourselves, and then give them advice instead of just taking our own advice.
Yeah, exactly. There's a thing, it's actually a thing, right? It's called the Solomon paradox. And
Okay.
it's how, like, I don't know the entire story, I can't remember it, but King Solomon used to be like, he was able to give all this great advice, but then he went down, in this horrible fashion because he, and I don't remember the whole story. You can look it up, but anyways,
Yeah.
that's where it comes from. It's called the Solomon paradox.
Wow. Okay, I got to look into that.
Yeah.
If you're just joining the live stream, we're here obviously with Deryck Whibley celebrating Walking Disaster, the new book that's out now. If you want your very own autographed copy of the book that Deryck himself signed, you can actually get it for 15% off today only at walkingdisasterbook.com. You head there, you type in walk15, WALK15. You get 15% off immediately the autographed copy that Deryck signed of the new book. And we're here taking fan questions from around the world. So if you are watching live, please send them in. We'll get to a couple more here. We got Leighton from New Zealand who is watching and says, where did the name come from for the song Newts?
That song, man. That was just that song gets talked about more than any other that song's just a B-side that never even made an album. But I hear about that song more than any other song almost. Other than like the big singles, you know. Newts. That was like, you know, I don't remember why that was called Newts. It was like working titles. Like we used to have it's still hard for me to look at songs that are on the albums and not call them by the working titles we used to have. Like for instance, like Over My Head Better Off Dead was called Butthole for so long as a working title. So like we'll be backstage and talking about a song and sometimes still accidentally call it Butthole. And Newts was one of those songs that just never got a real title because it never actually made an album. It was just something like I've always just made up dumb things. Like the song No Brains was called Food because I was hungry when I was writing that song, or when I first started writing that. So when I had to like put it down, I was like, I don't know, I'm hungry. Let's call this one Food. And then I'm making a quick demo of it. And those things just stick sometimes.
It's so funny. Now, Olivia from North Carolina writes in and says, what was the most difficult instrument to learn?
I think, I mean, I can play a few instruments kind of just averagely. So, I would say maybe the drums, but I also, it's hard to say because I've only really put real effort into playing guitar. I play drums on the side. I play piano on the side. I've never really sat down and tried to do it. So I kind of find that they're all about the same for me, but I don't really play them all that well. So I'm, you know, so I don't know if, you know, if you really want to play like Dave Brownsound, who can play guitar, like, you know, he can shred. I mean, he worked on that for a long time. You know, he practiced that for years. But the funny thing about that is like, he mostly learned how to do that on tour during the Does This Look Infected tour. That's when he really sat down and said, I'm going to become a really great guitar player. He wasn't like that before Sum 41. He was always a great guitar player. But to learn all that crazy, you know, Dave Brownsound stuff, that started after we'd recorded Does This Look Infected on that tour. He put the time in, so he's better to answer that question. But I, as an observer, he just sat and played for hours and hours and hours, and that took like 2 years. And all of a sudden, by the time we went to make the Chuck album, he was Dave Brownsound, who could just shred.
Totally. This is a perfectly timed question from Alex in the UK. We're talking about guitars. He says, hi, Deryck. Sum 41 was one of the 3 main artists that got me into playing guitar and wanting to be in a band myself, and wants to know which artist inspired you to first pick up a guitar and play music.
Oh, the first person that inspired me would have been Slash, to pick up a guitar. Wanted to, like, you know, the way he played, probably November Rain video or something, you know, out in the desert playing that solo coming out of the chapel. There's something about the way he stood and the way he played and the way the Les Paul looked. It just, like, for me, you know, I was 11 when that came out, in 91. And that to me was just like, yeah, I want to play guitar. Now, by the time I got to pick up a guitar, Nirvana was like all that I was really thinking about. So that made me want to learn and really, like, once I was learning, I realized I could just play a couple chords and I could write songs. Just, you know, Nirvana songs were only 3 chords. So it changed the game. You didn't need to be Slash to actually, you know, be successful and do something great. You could have 3 chords and write cool songs.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's why I never got that good. I was like, okay, cool. I got these 3 chords down.
Yeah, right.
Like Slash. I'm just going to do this.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
And it's kind of all you needed.
Yeah.
We're going to play a fun game here called 22 Questions in 2 Minutes. But I just wanted to remind everybody watching, if you are just joining, we've been live now for about 26 minutes with Deryck Whibley celebrating Walking Disaster. And right now, there's this insane deal on walkingdisasterbook.com that if you go there right now and today only, you can get 15% off autographed copies of the book. All you got to do is when you put the book in your cart on walkingdisasterbook.com, you just type in the code WALK15. So it's WALK 15. You have 15% off autographed copies of the book today only. So let's get into this. This is pretty fun. This is 22 questions in 2 minutes. So, don't give it too much thought. We'll just ask you rapid fire. Yeah, it sounds insane. All right. So I don't know if anyone's got a clock, but 2 minutes on the clock. Okay. Where were you born?
Scarborough, Ontario, Canada.
Who would you want to play you in a movie?
Oh, man, I don't know. I don't know actors. I have no idea.
What was your first job?
First job was walking kids to school when I was 7.
What chore do you hate doing?
Cleaning toilets.
What is your biggest fear?
Spiders.
Who makes you laugh the most?
Chris Farley.
What is the one thing you need to have in your fridge at all times?
My fridge is so bare. I'm just going to say something that is always there. It's fruit.
There you go. What is your favorite school subject?
My favorite school subject was always this. It was called spare for us, which meant no class at all.
Oh, like study hall, maybe in the States.
Yeah, I guess that's what maybe. So
Totally.
we called it spare. So yeah, no class.
Who is the most interesting person you met recently?
Recently? Oh man, I don't know. The most recent person I met was the other day. It was Chris Angel.
That's a cool
pretty
guy.
interesting person.
What did he pull up to the Vegas signing?
Well, he just appeared.
He doesn't pull up. He just appears. It's good. What is your middle name?
Jason.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, I don't know. Being woken up in the middle of the night because I barely get any sleep at all anyway.
What is your favorite hobby?
Oh, music. I don't have any other hobbies other than music.
What is your guilty pleasure?
That's a weird one. I've been asked that many times. I don't have one because everything I do is just out in the open. I don't have anything that's like a secret thing that's weird. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty one-dimensional. Like music is like pretty much all I got.
Yeah. Do you have any hidden talents?
Basketball.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if it's hidden because, a lot of people have seen me play quite a bit. But, yeah, that's the one thing that surprises people is how much I play basketball.
What color is your toothbrush?
No idea. I just pick whatever I can get.
What is your pet's name?
I don't have a pet.
What is your favorite word?
Marzipan.
What does it mean?
It's like the candy thing. Like that's like, like if you get like those chocolate Easter bunnies at Easter, and like there's like that little eyeball.
Yeah.
It's like a candy eyeball. It's usually marzipan, I think.
Okay.
I don't actually even like marzipan, but I just that word always got stuck in my head in high school when I found out what that was. It was like that. Like somebody was like, that little like Easter bunny like the thing. And I was like, that's called marzipan. And ever since then, I was probably like 17. And I still get stuck in my head. Now I'm gonna be saying that all day.
That will be my favorite word forever now. What is the last album you bought or streamed?
No idea. I don't know. I couldn't tell you that.
Okay. What is the last gift you gave?
No, that's a bad one because I can't even remember giving it. I don't know.
What cause is dear to your heart?
Oh man. I think there's a lot of things that I care about, but I think like what we were talking about, like mental health and like personal development, I feel is so important and so, like we said, there's a big thing of it out there, but not enough people take time to invest in themselves. I feel.
Yeah. And again, I'm not to push this on you, Deryck. I'm just saying, put it in your head. I think there's a space there where I think people that need that help or that enjoy it, like you do or like I do,
Uh,
coming from a voice like you, I think there's something there.
maybe down the road. I mean, I feel like the Walking Disaster book kind of ends on I mean, sorry, we're going off on a bit of a thing here, but of our 22 questions. But I feel like I went through a lot of stuff, but the whole last half of the book, like this last decade has been about building yourself from nothing and getting to, for us, is like the biggest we've ever been and the best year of our lives, right? So like that's the whole sort of end of the book. I'm not saying it is a self-help book, but I do think that it's, that part of what we're talking about right now is part of this book.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a book. I don't know if you call it a self-help book, but it's definitely a book, obviously a memoir, but you leave it, I think I did, with better perspective on your own life. You know, where you go, oh, okay, maybe I should look at things a little differently. Okay, so there's 2 more questions and 22 questions.
Okay.
What is your greatest achievement?
Well, I think just like I said, like this being this far into our career, almost 30 years, and I can honestly say that this is the best year of our entire career, best year of my life.
There you go. And then where do you want to go that you've never been? I guess traveling. You've probably traveled everywhere, haven't you?
I've traveled to most, places that you would tour. I've never been on a vacation. So, there's always just places that you hear of that could be cool to go to, like Fiji. I mean, I've never been there. Sounds cool. Um, that's the only thing I can think of, really. I mean, I don't know. I only know the places that we tour. And I would like to go back to a lot of those places, not on tour, and just hang out, because I never get a chance to hang out in all these countries in Europe and stuff like that.
Well, it's funny. It's not surprising to anyone who's read the book that you've only been there on tour, because I think in the book you do reveal you've been on one vacation in your life.
Well, I went on a honeymoon.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just one of the many stories, of course. If you're watching us right now, you can look forward to when you pick up your copy. And if you want an autographed copy, there's 15% off right now, today only, though, at walkingdisasterbook.com. You just head there, pick up your book, and type in WALK15. So it's WALK 15 for 15% off autographed copies of the book that Deryck himself has personally signed for you. Deryck, we're unfortunately out of time, but this was awesome. And it's always great seeing you. And the book is fantastic. I can't say enough good things about it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Thanks to everyone watching. We'll see you soon.
Cool.